The very big question before the world right now is, who will be the next president of the United States? Will Donald Trump win again? Or will Joe Biden and the Democrats manage to take over the White House finally? Vedic astrology attempts to answer this question right now. People who've known me and have followed me for a while know that in 2016, I had predicted the victory of Donald Trump. This was at a time when nobody thought that he was going to win. I had then clearly said that his planets were such that he would defeat Hillary Clinton then. We are now going to try and figure out whether his planets are stronger than those of Joe Biden's in the elections that are scheduled in early November in the United States. I want to make it clear that I do not have the confirmed birth details of Joe Biden. I do not know anybody who's even remotely connected to Joe Biden. So I haven't been able to get confirmed birth particulars as far as he is concerned. But I'm taking whatever I can find on the internet. I'm using the data that is being used by most astrologers in the world to calculate his horoscope and to see whether he has the possibility of holding the most important position in the world for the next 4 years. Let's start with the horoscope of Donald Trump first. Donald Trump is born under the sign of Leo. Sun, Surya, is the lord of his ascendant. Now, Sun is considered the king of all planets. It's a dominant planet, it's a powerful planet, it's a planet which is invariably important, which is invariably significant in any sphere of activity it is involved in. If you look at Donald Trump's Shadbal chart, you will find that Sun is the most powerful of all 9 planets in his horoscope. So that is the first indication that his Lagnesh is very powerful. It is the most powerful of all planets in his chart. And then we look at the position of Sun. Sun is positioned in the 10th house of the horoscope. The 10th house is the house of profession. When the Lord of the Ascendant is placed in the 10th house, it's likely to give very powerful results on the professional front. Every horoscope has certain planets that are good for it and other planets that are not so good for it. The Lagnesh is the most powerful planet because that is the Lord of the Ascendant. Then is the Yogkarak planet. The Yogkarak for a Leo ascendant is Mars. And in Donald Trump's horoscope, Mars is placed right in the ascendant. The ascendant represents every aspect of your life. So Mars placed in the Lagna ensures a very powerful destiny for this horoscope. Sun is placed in the 10th house. Mars is placed in the ascendant. Sun is the most powerful of all 9 planets in this horoscope. This horoscope is going to succeed to a very unusual extent professionally. Now, Rahu is a very interesting planet in astrology. I have often said that any kind of material success, worldly success, whether it is in films or in sports or in business or in politics, all these horoscopes need a very powerful Rahu. Without the support of Rahu, nobody can succeed to a very great extent in this world because Rahu is a worldly planet. Now you look at Donald Trump's horoscope, Rahu is placed in the 10th house. And Rahu is placed very close to the midpoint of the 10th house. Therefore, Rahu becomes very significant with regard to his career. Now, Rahu is also an untrustworthy planet. Rahu is considered a liar, is considered a cheat, is considered deceitful. Not specifically in Donald Trump's case, but just generally as a planet, Rahu is considered to be a dishonest planet. But you need that kind of manipulation, the ability to manipulate, the ability to trick people, the ability to capitalize on any small opportunities that come your way to be able to succeed in the world. And Rahu placed in the 10th house of profession has given Donald Trump the ability to do all of this. The other very important point is that Sun, Rahu, as well as Jupiter in Donald Trump's horoscope are sitting in the nakshatra of Mars. I had mentioned earlier that certain planets are favorable, others are not so favorable for every horoscope. Jupiter is another very favorable planet for this chart. It is lord of the 5th house, which is the house of luck. It's the house of, good fortune. And it is sitting in the 2nd house, which is the house of wealth. Therefore, this individual is extremely wealthy. And the 2nd house is also considered to be the Kutum Sthan. the house of your ancestors. Therefore, this person has benefited from his father, from his ancestors, from those who have come before him in his family. To a very great extent, this person has benefited financially from those connections. So Sun, which is the Lagnesh, Rahu, which is the planet of worldly success, and Jupiter, which is a very benefic planet for a Leo ascendant, are all sitting in the nakshatra of Mars. Therefore, they are controlled, they are guided, they are directed by Mars. Mars is the Yokarak for this horoscope. Therefore, all of these planets are going to function exceptionally well for this chart. Now, at any given point in time, there are a certain combination of planets that control the horoscope. That can be seen through the Vimshotri Dasha chart. If you look at Donald Trump's horoscope right now, he's running the Jupiter Mahadasha. We have established that Jupiter is a planet of good fortune. Jupiter is a favorable planet for this horoscope. He's running the Antardasha of Saturn. Saturn is not a particularly good planet for this horoscope, but if you look at Donald Trump's Shadbal chart, you will find that Saturn is almost powerless because it is the 7th most powerful planet. The Shadbal only speaks of 7 planets. It doesn't speak of Rahu and Ketu. So Saturn, which is placed at number 7, is actually the weakest of all the planets that have been considered in the Shadbal chart. And given that Saturn is weak and therefore kind of powerless in this horoscope, the influence of Jupiter and the impact of Jupiter as the Dasha Lord will be much greater than the impact of Saturn as the Antardasha Lord. Going further, we know that the elections are happening in early November 2020. Let's look at the Dasha chart then. From the 28th of October 2020 till the 14th of March 2021, Donald Trump is going to be running the Mahadasha of Jupiter, the Antardasha of Saturn, and the Pratyantardasha of Rahu. I've established right at the start that Rahu is the planet that takes him to the top, whether by hook or by crook. It is an unethical planet. It is a dishonest planet. It is a planet involved in all kinds of unsavory activities. But the fact of the matter is, this Rahu in the 10th house is extremely powerful for Donald Trump. It is extremely significant for his professional life and his career. And this is the planet that is going to be his Pratyantardasha Lord at the time that these elections are taking place. That's the first point that tells me that his Dasha chart is very powerful and therefore he has a very strong possibility of winning these elections. Rahu is the one that's taking him through. Now let's look at the transit of Rahu. Rahu has just transited into Taurus. End of September 2020, Rahu shifted signs and went into Taurus. Taurus is where Rahu is placed in Donald Trump's horoscope. And Rahu is placed at 27 degrees 39 minutes in his chart. And at the time of his elections, Rahu is going to be almost at the same degree in the 10th house. It's going to be almost at the same point it was when he was born. Whenever a planet is close to the point where it was at the point of birth, it becomes extremely powerful, it becomes extremely significant. Rahu is going to be almost at the same point it was when Donald Trump was born. Therefore, it's going to be very powerful. It's also controlling the Dasha chart to a very great extent. It is extremely powerful for Donald Trump. Defeating this man in this election, according to me, is going to be almost impossible. However, it's important to consider the horoscope of Joe Biden before we make a definitive statement with regard to Donald Trump. So let's look at that chart next. Joe Biden's horoscope is interesting because he was born in Scranton, where my favorite TV series, The Office, is located. So I found that quite interesting. I also found his horoscope very interesting because he's born under the sign of Scorpio. So the lord of his ascendant is Mars. Now, Mars is positioned in the 12th house of this horoscope. The 12th house is not considered a very favorable spot, but when a favorable planet is positioned in the 12th house, it ensures satisfaction, pleasure, comfort, luxury, all of these things. So the lord of his ascendant placed in the 12th house has ensured that he's had a very luxurious life, a very comfortable life, a very pleasure-filled life. Every horoscope has certain planets that are not good for it and others that are good for it. For a Scorpio ascendant, the planet that is the worst, that is the Akarak, is Mercury. And if you look at this horoscope, Mars and Mercury are positioned together. The Lagnesh, the ascendant lord, is sitting along with the planet that is the worst for this entire horoscope. Such a horoscope typically doesn't manage to make it all the way to the top. When the Akarak is sitting close to the Lagnesh, when the planet that is bringing destruction to the chart is sitting closest or this close to the lord of the chart, it is going to ensure that the chart doesn't rise to the highest levels possible or imaginable. This is the first thing that tells me that Joe Biden can never be the President of the United States. He can be in that highest circle, he can be in that world, he can be a part of that society, but to actually be the king, that is something that I believe is not possible for Joe Biden. That's the first point. You look at his sun. Sun is the lord of the 10th house for this horoscope, and Sun is very powerfully positioned in the ascendant. So such a person will always live his life in the limelight. He will always be powerful, he will always be prominent, he will always be significant. But go back to that conjunction of Mercury and Mars. He will be the kingmaker, but he will never be the king. Jupiter is another planet that is very good for Joe Biden, as it is for Donald Trump. But the interesting thing is that Joe Biden has been running the Mahadasha of Jupiter since the 21st of September 2006. It's been 14 years already. And in this period, he's actually not been able to make it to the top. He was the Vice President of the United States. That's a very big position. But technically, that's still not the king. That's not the top. And now this Dasha is about to end. He is in the Mahadasha of Jupiter and the Antardasha of Rahu. This has been running for him since the 27th of April 2020. Again, we come back to my favorite planet for discussion, Rahu. Rahu is, in Joe Biden's horoscope, positioned in the 10th house exactly as it is for Donald Trump. So one can imagine that this Rahu is going to give Joe Biden very good results as well and give him the possibility of making it to the top. Well, not really. The reason for that is there is a special relationship between Mars and Rahu. They actually do not like each other. Whenever you find a Mars-Rahu conjunction in any house of the horoscope, you can be certain that that house will face a lot of problems. Rahu is sitting in the 10th house. It's ensuring great success to the 10th house. But the fact of the matter is, Rahu actually is not very good for Mars. Rahu doesn't have a very, very good equation or an understanding with Mars. Therefore, Rahu will not allow Mars to make it all the way to the top. He will support profession, he will ensure success because that is his nature in the 10th house. But because he dislikes Mars, he's going to ensure that Mars really doesn't manage to make it all the way to the top. Therefore, Rahu, in Joe Biden's case, is a planet of obstruction for him right now. And that is the Antardasha Lord. So we see Mercury, Mars, the Akarak and the Lagnesh sitting together, limiting the horoscope. Then we see Rahu as an enemy of Mars sitting in the 10th house, ensuring that this horoscope is not able to make it all the way to the top. And that same Rahu is the Antardasha Lord at the time these elections are going to take place. Another very important point. Look at the transit of Rahu at the time of this election. For Joe Biden, this transit is going to happen in the 7th house of his horoscope. Rahu does not function well in the 7th house. The 7th house is the house of partnership. Rahu is a planet of deceit, of disturbance, of manipulation and all of that. In the 7th house, it ensures partnerships that end up betraying the horoscope. So Joe Biden is counting on the support of a lot of people. He's counting on a certain strategy of partnership right now, which eventually is going to betray him because Rahu in the 7th house is not going to allow for success through partnership. I'd like to bring to your notice another very important point. The dasha that follows the one that we are running right now is a very important dasha to consider, particularly if that next dasha is likely to start sometime in the near future. Joe Biden's Jupiter dasha is almost over. In September of 2022, Joe Biden is going to complete the Mahadasha of Jupiter and enter the Mahadasha of Saturn. Now, Mars and Saturn, again, are planets that don't get along well with each other because they are both very aggressive planets. They are both warrior planets, and they are on opposite sides of the planetary spectrum. Saturn is positioned in the 7th house of Joe Biden's horoscope. A planet positioned in the 7th house becomes the planet of death. It becomes what is known as the Markesh in Vedic astrology. So, he is 2 years away from entering the Mahadasha of the planet that is going to kill him. I believe that as soon as the Antardasha of Mercury begins in the Mahadasha of Saturn, which is going to be around September of 2025, Joe Biden may pass on from this world. Given that the dasha that is up ahead is one that is not favorable for Joe Biden, given that Saturn Mahadasha is going to result in his end, not in him gaining greater success, I have to say that it's highly unlikely that Joe Biden is going to win this election. As I've already said, this prediction might be wrong because I do not have the confirmed time of birth of Joe Biden, but I'm reasonably certain that what I'm seeing right now is how things are going to play out in November in the United States. Joe Biden is not destined for success right now. Like him or hate him, love him or loathe him, worship him or despise him, it seems highly likely that Donald Trump is going to manage to retain the White House and be the next president of the United States of America.